Hello and welcome back to My Mom's Basement, presented by Barstool Sports and 3Chi. It is Robbie Fox, it is Clem, and it is my brother, Mike Fox, back on the podcast yet again. And we're going to do an episode with the same topic we did with KFC and Brendan years ago. Like when the podcast first started 3 years ago, we did an episode called Being a Nerd in the 90s. And we just talked about all the stuff they loved in the 90s. It was very specific to them, the weird computer games they were into, like King's Dungeon, some shit like
King's
that.
Quest. Put some respect on
King's Quest, yeah.
on Sierra Williams' name.
We did King's Quest. We did a lot of 90s hip hop. Now I've got my brother on. I've got Clem on, and we're going to get their perspective on being a nerd in the 90s. Go through some of the favorite movies, favorite trends, we'll talk wrestling because, wrestling in the 1990s was wrestling at its peak, basically. Before we get into that, though, I want to talk a little bit about some weird news that happened this week in the superhero world, kind of basement adjacent. Batgirl was planned as a movie for DC. We were kind of looking forward to it. I was, at least, because I like Batgirl. I like her in the comic books, the cartoons. Michael Keaton was going to be back as Batman. We saw on-set pictures of him in the bat suit. He looked basically the same he did in the 80s movies, which is crazy because he's 70 now. But I guess you only show that much of a person, and there you go. But it's canceled. They're like, we're not putting it out on HBO Max. We're not putting it out in theaters. We filmed it. We spent $90 million on it. And it's just, we're going to put it in a trash can, forget it ever happened. Very strange. I've never seen that happen ever. People are obviously calling for them to release the movie. Hashtag release the Batgirl movie. Now it's the new release the Snyder Cut. I am on the side of that because I would like to see it. I read like a little plot synopsis leak on what it was supposed to be. Sounded cool. Sounded like a simple Batgirl movie to me. Someone said Batman like has to go to Cambodia or something because they're tracking his flights and he needs to like get out of the country for a bit. And she goes on a whole media tour for him, which I thought sounded funny. Just very strange though. Batgirl canceled. Some other things canceled. They said they were going to make a Supergirl movie, not happening anymore. But James Gunn was like, everyone chill out. Peacemaker season 2 is still going to happen, which Clem, like you said right before we started recording. Yeah, no shit.
You think? That's an old part of my take bit right there. Yeah, if Peacemaker, that would have been the only news I cared about because I personally don't know much about Batgirl, had no clue there was anything Batgirl being made. However, I am with the Bat Boys right here, and these guys know a lot more about Bat than I do. So you guys tell me, should I be upset or whatever? How does this impact the Batman shows that we spent a long time talking about, Robbie, about what we were excited about, not excited about? Like, are those things just dead now? Or are they going somewhere else? There's HBO.
Those are all safe.
Mac.
I think the Matt Reeves Batman stuff is safe. I think he's one of the guys with the keys to the kingdom right now where they're like, we're not going to cancel your shit. But the DC EU stuff, they call it, with like Batfleck and Keaton, it's a mess. Admittedly, it's a mess with the Ezra Miller shit too. Like, that movie's still coming out with Ezra Miller. Who wants to see that at this point with that weirdo?
This is how I think of it in Barstool terms. When you hear that podcasts are going to start getting canceled or like pared down, it's like anything with Big Cat, KFC. Like, there's certain people like that's not getting touched. Those people are fine. I feel like anything James Gunn, Matt Reeves, those things are fine. If it has George R. Martin anywhere in the executive producers, those things are fine. So that's how I'm going to see it as a casual fan here. But you guys tell me, what I should
Mike,
think.
do you care about Batgirl getting canceled?
No, and what I'm wondering is because the immediate outrage and shock and hashtags that start, release Batgirl, I'm wondering if this is sort of on purpose, if they're throwing the hook in the water for everybody. Because I got to be honest, I didn't even know there was a Batgirl movie being made. And maybe that was their problem. Maybe there wasn't enough hype. And they said, how do we get some hype going so people know about this? Well, tell them it's canceled and it's not coming out. It's a bit of a marketing ploy.
I don't hate that conspiracy theory. Because like you said, like, campaigns like this happen. We got ugly Sonic changed into good Sonic. The internet did that.
That's a great fucking conspiracy. I mean, I could see like a market person be like, all right, we know the Snyder Cut and they brought back Morbius 7 fucking times because of these idiots on the internet.
I'm just picturing like Ben Affleck from Good Will Hunting when he wants the retainer, like he kicks his feet up on the desk and he's like, tell him it's canceled.
Tell them they can't have it.
Yeah.
Tell them they can't have it.
I will say, this movie, I was like, looking forward to it because I like Batgirl, but also with the trepidation of like I know DC it doesn't have the best track record, so it's like kind of looking forward to it in the terms of I hope it's good. I hope they nail Batgirl because I feel like if you do nail Batgirl, it could be a good movie. There's some really good comics out there, good cartoons. But now that they took it away, I'm like, show me this movie. I want to see it. Yeah.
I'm gonna go on Twitter here, see if there is a hashtag trending where it's like bring back the bat or something like that.
I've seen Lights Camera Barstool has been using hashtag release the Batgirl movie, which I thought just release Batgirl would be shorter, but maybe it's just like, what is Batgirl locked up, you know?
I kind of want it to be as long as humanly possible. Hashtag release the Batgirl movie and do not move all this WB stuff to WB, just so then it's the whole 280 character limit on Twitter.
That's the other thing. They're saying HBO Max might be folded into Discovery Plus, which seems like a horrible idea to me. The HBO Max brand, I feel like Discovery Plus should fold into that. I mean, me and Mike have a lot of the same streaming services. I know that because we share the passwords for them. And
don't let the authorities know what's going on here. I enjoy those passwords, man. I can't have them yanked.
I was going to say, of all of them, I think HBO Max might have the best selection and the best interface. Like, I love HBO Max as a streaming service, and it's one of the ones that I go to the most. So if they take that away, I'm going to be pissed. They came from my WWE network first, and then HBO Max.
I was gonna say you mean to tell me you don't love searching for your WrestleMania by season on Peacock?
Do they do that? No.
You still have, if you want to watch WrestleMania 6, you have to go to WrestleMania season 6 episode 1.
Oh my gosh.
Clem, they've had control of it for like 2 years and they haven't changed it. People every time are like, "What? I'm going to King of the Ring season 6 episode 3 to watch King of the Ring 97 or something."
Clem, I knew I could get him riled up. He wears his buttons on his chest like Vader, man. I'm just going to push that one right now.
Let me just tell you. So I'm coming from the other side of this. And by the way, shout out to everyone who uses these shared streaming services. I haven't paid for Netflix once my entire life. Back when it was a DVD service, Mama Clem was on Netflix from day one, basically. We just got Amazon Prime finally. We finally stopped leeching off of them.
Just got Amazon Prime? That's like, I feel like one of the first ones you get.
So
you didn't have it for the free shipping?
We have it for the free shipping now.
Oh, okay.
And now that we have gotten into The Boys, which, by the way, everyone in the basement who was telling me to get into The Boys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. And for anyone in the basement that has not started The Boys yet, watch it right this minute. Pause the episode, leave 5-star review, all that good stuff. Subscribe on YouTube, and then go watch The Boys. Because I saw the director had said, I don't understand what the problem with TV is, where these people make, slow building up for a season. You could make every episode fun, action-packed, and have an entire story. I didn't know what he was talking about. Every episode of The Boys is better than basically every episode of anything ever, because every episode is a 10 out of 10. So I'm sorry I got sidetracked there. However,
we told you would love that. We told you.
You nailed it. It's superheroes in real life. It's like superheroes with insurance policies. They have egos. They're assholes. They're
kind of reminds you of Peacemaker in some ways, right?
Yes.
And I made the reference opposite when Peacemaker came out. I was like, it's kind of like DC, The Boys, like Suicide Squad mixed with The Boys. You could kind of like make the comparisons there.
Exactly. Perfect way to put it. However, let me just say this. On the other side, this is a Podfathers thing. On Podfathers, we have a thing called Content Corner, where we all share what we're watching for people that may want to kind of get into the same thing, kid stuff or adult stuff, whatever it may be. Our boy Chaps, diehard Discovery Plus fan, diehard. And I'm like, Chaps, what's on Discovery Plus? I'm thinking, we talking Shark Week. We got some cool Planet Earth stuff, right? He's like, no, Clem, I like to watch 1,000-Pound Sisters. And it's these people that are, twice the size of my ass. And they're they're washing themselves with a rag and they're dealing with all this shit. They're like, all right, I'm going to start dieting, only have like 5 pies of pizza a night, which hey, if that's your thing, that's your thing. It's just weird. And to have that kind of get mishmashed with I want to watch the new Batman shit is just going to be a very weird. So I'm looking at the shows here: 1,000-Pound Sisters, 90 Day Fiance. That just feels like a very weird thing.
Our sister watches that.
Oh, we have a Lady Fox getting into this stuff. So there is some weird ass shit. There was one where it's I think it's people who have some sort of mental problems and they date each other, which is a nice thing. It just feels weird to put that on television. So Discovery
right
Plus.
as Batman's like beating in the faces to other people with mental problems.
So we're getting into a weird place when we get into Discovery Plus just in general. I'm just saying that right now. So I don't know how I feel about all this stuff going on, and I don't know how the WB network's involved. I didn't even know the WB network was still on. That's a 90s thing right there, right? The singing frog, that was a big thing back in the day.
It's a good transition. Before we get into our topic for this episode, being a nerd in the 90s, let me tell everyone about Whatnot. Whatnot is actually a very cool app. We've been talking about it in the office, and if you haven't heard of it, it's a live stream auction app where you can buy collectibles, comics, and really almost anything else. They bring businesses and people together through commerce where sellers can host live streams and engaged connoisseurs like yourselves can bid in real time. And Barstool is Whatnot's newest seller. So there's live streams happening 24/7. You could go on literally at any time of the night, see some live streams, see cool comics, cool cards, stuff like that. And then you could watch once a week Barstool stream where we're selling office items. They just auctioned off the can that Rico threw at Big T's head. I think it sold for like $2,000, which is crazy. If you download the Whatnot app and follow Barstool Sports at Barstool Sports, you'll be the first to get notified when we go live. So make sure you check that out. Use the link in the description for $10 off your first purchase on Whatnot. It's a great app. Go check out the Barstool auctions. I even heard rumors, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this, but I'm going to say it, that some old jerseys are going to be auctioned off on there. Barstool related jerseys.
We'll
possibly even jerseys of myself and Clem. So keep an eye on Whatnot for that. Now let's get into our topic for the episode. Growing up a nerd in the 90s. This was suggested to me by my brother. I said, that's a great idea. We didn't have an episode for this week. We talked about that last week. So we called this a grab bag episode. And I kind of feel like this is a great grab bag topic. So I have listed down movies, cartoons, television shows, wrestling as a whole, toys, hobbies, and trends. Where do you think we should start here?
I'll go
start
cartoons.
with Clem, dog. Clem, because I think maybe you got me by a few years, Clem. What was it like coming into figuring out all this cool stuff that was going on and what you were into and what really, grabbed your attention?
Yeah.
You're coming into the 90s when you're 8 years old, Clem. Is that right? Did I do the math right?
That is correct. Old man Clem popping in. Little shit. I wasn't even known as Clem back then. I wasn't known until Clem until high school. It's the weirdest thing that I kind of just adopted this name that people like. If I tell them I have more than one name, let alone what my other name is, they get very upset at me.
We're like, we don't want to hear it.
Yeah. we have to bleep it out when we put clips out and my name happens to get mentioned. The funny thing, and I had the old KFC and Brendan episode is episode 11. I looked it up. That episode was fucking awesome. And it spoke a lot of the shit that I got into. And I'm kind of wedged in between Super Producer BC and KFC in terms of age. And I think I'm perfect for that because I think a lot of stuff Brendan loved, Kevin got into, and that made him like the closet nerd that he is today. King's Quest. We're dealing with floppy disks, which, I mean, there was a time where it's like, oh, I can't believe people don't know what floppy disks are. There's these little 3.5 inch discs. Kids don't even know that. Kids don't even know what DVDs are these days. I'm like shaking my fist at a cloud as I say this. It's crazy. But King's Quest was a game. It was like a role-playing game. You walked to all these little spots on it was a graphical game. And you'd be like, open door. And then they would open door. And you would just have to kind of figure this stuff out on your own. It was so goddamn stupid. But it was
there was no YouTube tutorials.
Yeah, and it was just so much fun, right? My kids now, they'll just watch YouTube. They'll watch someone play for 2 hours with a, crazy voice that talks like this, and they could do it forever. So that was kind of the thing that I guess is like the nerdiest thing I was into at a pretty young age. And I got into role-playing games pretty young too. I was into Phantasy Star 2 on the Sega Genesis. That was one of my first introductions to this day. That game holds up just about as well. Phantasy Star 2, Final Fantasy 7 a few years later. Those were the two games that got me into the nerdy side of, I guess, video games. So, and that, that wasn't as crazy as King's Quest where you were just typing shit in. But, at that point, I was into sports and I kind of could hang out with all the different cliques in the high school. The jocks I could talk sports with, the nerds I could talk this stuff or some, whatever the comic stuff with. Wrestling, the wrestling group, I think wrestling kind of brought us all together too, right? I think sports entertainment at its absolute peak, which I had a weird thing with wrestling where I was heavy into it during the Hogan era. He left. I guess he went to WCW probably a year after I got out. And then I got back in right as Stone Cold was kind of ascending like a rocket to the moon. So I kind of missed the Bret Hart era of the WWF, as I call it. But those two eras, that kind of like linked everyone together, and we're doing crotch chops to our teachers and saying suck it and stick it up your candy ass and stuff like that. So that's kind of just
beginning and end of the 90s in wrestling.
Yes, exactly. That's kind of what it was. And I think in the middle part there was a lot of hip hop and a lot of like playing Madden and just, sitting in my room, that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, you referenced Sega. Was there a lot of like inviting your friends over and having 2 controllers and going to war on like NHL 94 and stuff?
Oh yeah. Yep. We would play Madden seasons, make up Madden teams, and just like, overnight sleepovers where you're just trying to like get through a season and stuff like that. And as a young kid, I would host Madden tournaments at my house where everyone, like, there was no money, up for grabs or anything, but it was kind of just like a respect thing. And this, like, it's funny. Like I could talk about this shit forever, man. But like my dad wasn't a big sports fan growing up. He was a Yankees fan when he was younger. Hated Steinbrenner, so got kind of out of baseball. He's a music guy. He's a drummer. You know that, Bob. So fellow, he's still like, we'll do some gigs to this day, basically. And
that would be fun to go see your dad.
Let's get Papa Clem like playing
that'd be a blast.
Can he do backup drums at a pop punk? Can he do like is there such thing as backup?
Him and Frankie can do like a drum battle like Godsmack.
Papa Clem just coming down from a fucking like the rafters with like smoke going off and light shows. But it was one of those things like I just loved looking at like stat books. So I kind of got into sports just looking at baseball stats and just loving it. It was something, it's probably the way kids look at boobs the first time.
It's a very nerdy way to get into sports.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the way kids look at boobs in Playboy and say, I like that. It's that, but for like baseball nerds. And with that, I would then say, hey, let's play some Madden at my house. Or this is even more nerdy as I think about it. I would have Madden seasons where everyone would choose a team. I'd simulate the games, write down who won the games, and then bring it in each like week to school. Be like, all right, you're the Falcons. You lost to the Bengals 42-27 yesterday. And I kept standings. It was just
read
one of those weird
lunch,
things I just loved.
People are cheering. My team won. I love the idea of that.
And I don't think I'm on the spectrum, but as I say a lot of this stuff, I feel like I might have dabbled on the spectrum at some point. I'm not sure what the spectrum even is, to be honest with you. But as I'm just kind of piecing together my childhood, I feel like that's the kind of stuff that, looking back now, might have been.
You are reminding me of Tommy Smokes with him doing that, and him writing down in a notebook like every result, every play, how he played, and all of that. Mike, where does that take you off of? Like, I'm trying to think back to like, now I was also a 90s kid myself, and I spent 2 full years in the 90s. But I don't really remember
mustard in
like
your diapers.
I assume you were inviting your friends over, doing the same thing video game wise, but probably for like Mortal Kombat and WWF No Mercy more than Madden.
You know what? Sega was huge. Obviously, it was like the first system for me that I got for a birthday where it was a huge leap from Nintendo to Sega in terms of graphics and the games available and all that. And it's so funny that we're talking about this now because my son's got a Nintendo Switch and it's got a lot of old game apps full of old console games. There's a Sega Genesis app, and we were looking through it just earlier tonight, and there's a game, Streets of Rage 2.
Yes.
It was the game that came with the Sega when I got it for my birthday. And I was excited to see it, and I wanted to share it with my son because, nostalgia factor. I thought it was great. And I'm like, let's check this out. This came with my Sega, Streets of Rage 2. And it's not as great as I remember it.
No!
It's very slow moving, and like you can accidentally hit your own partner and cause them health damage. And I'm like, Luke's, yelling at me. He's like, did you just cause me health damage? I'm like, sorry, I didn't know you could do that. I forgot. It's been a long time. And then he beat up one of the guys and they dropped their knife and he picked it up and he's like, ooh, I could stab. And I'm like, oh no, it's just not what you should be doing right now. But Sonic, obviously Sonic came with a lot of, I think of the first generation Sega packages. So Sonic was huge. Sonic 2 was huge. Madden 94, I remember being huge. Oh, there it is. Look at
In the
for
shadow box.
The people on the YouTube, I never knew what a shadow box was, but I happen to have. I got John Madden Football for Christmas the year I got Genesis. It was probably the third game I opened. I didn't even know who John Madden was back then. I just had no clue, and I thought it was Joe Montana. I'm like, who is this John Madden guy? Little did I know that, and that is like the reason I became like a diehard football fan, is because Madden was so much fun as an announcer. The video game was so fucking great. And I bought a shadow box. I just happen to still have the game from, 1990. I'm so old. I'm so goddamn
Rest in peace
old.
to a legend, John Madden.
absolute
That
legend.
also fits into a topic that I was going to ask, a question that I was going to ask that Mike suggested. He was going to say, what is the most 90s thing you own, and do you still own it? That's pretty damn 90s, still owning the cartridge of the game that you could blow into. Mike, what would that be for you?
I think I have two that I should mention. I think the most 90s thing I still have is my original email address. It's an AOL email address.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've never
just send the
changed it.
StreamYard link to that. Yeah, right before we went live.
What do
Yeah.
people say when you're like, Mike Fox at AOL? Like, are they just like,
He
Yeah,
still
like,
doesn't have
what's-
Venmo. He's like, PayPal me. I'm like, dude.
I love that. That's fucking great, man. Like, stay out of this stay out of the internet weeds as long as you. That's like our boy. This is why you and Trent are such good friends, Rob, because he's still like Yahoo till his core. There's a lot of like Fox, like.
It's funny that you know that
dude.
Trent is still a Yahoo email address. One of my favorite parts of Trent's email address, I won't reveal it. I won't dox him. There's a typo in his email address. He misspells his name in his own email address.
That's so good.
Never changed it. He was like, "It's fine by me."
Mike,
yeah, people do. They give me, they give me that you still use an AOL email address. Like, yeah, nothing's wrong with it. It works. It's never not worked.
You know who else uses an AOL email?
And I get email.
You know who else uses an AOL? One Eli Manning, or at least he did a few years ago.
Oh, your guy.
There was this whole thing about like some memorabilia scandal, and they were showing his emails. It was like Eli Manning at AOL.com. And I'm like, I love my guy Eli, still rocks AOL. That's such an Eli Manning move. So, Mike, that is
the other thing. I think I saved it because I'm like, I should save this because this is going to be like an artifact one day. I'm going to show my children. They're going to think I'm 100 years old. I have on CD now. That's what I call music, Volume 1.
No, you got number one?
I had number one. I got it for Christmas one year when it first
That
came
is
out.
as 90s as it
That's what I
gets.
call music, number one. Yeah.
Do you know any of the songs that are on it? Off the top of your head?
I think my favorite song on it, was "Fly Away" by Lenny Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz, yeah.
But there's like Hanson's "Mbop." Pretty sure there's a Spice Girl song on there. "Barbie Girl" by Aqua is on there. Another great song called "The Way" by a band called Fastball is on there.
Never skip Fastball when it comes on my iPod.
Great,
never
great 90s track.
Number one song of that, Mike. The first song. Can you tell me what it is? Because if you can, I'm going to sing it to you.
Is it a Janet Jackson song?
I heard from a friend today, and she said you were. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not. It's Together Again. That's a different. There's Together Again by Janet Jackson. So there's
number one.
That's number one. As long
On
as
their
you love me,
Spotify.
Backstreet Boys number 2, and then The Way, Fastball. This is an unbelievable album. This is probably like 5 years worth of awesome shit that they just waited because it was the first album.
The first one, yeah, they had the big selection.
Yeah.
Sex and Candy.
They're still putting those out, by the way. I looked it up recently. Like they're still, I think they're up to like they're in the hundreds now. It's like now that's what I call music 147.
I have
like
the
UFC
number.
almost.
It's under 100. If you could tell me the
is
number,
it?
I was gonna see if you guys could guess it. Yep.
92.
I'm
gonna guess like 99. Gretzky.
82. 82 and 83, however, is coming out August 5th. So by the time this
2 days.
it comes out today,
This
right?
week. Or the day that this comes out.
We are going head to head.
Go get the new
That's
what I call
music.
music. Go to your local Best Buy or Sam Ash and pick it
You
up
can't
today.
go to Sam Goody.
Oh
That's
yeah,
another
Sam
thing,
Goody.
Mike.
That's what I meant to say, not Sam Ash. It's an
That's
actual
another
music
thing
store.
is we were buying physical music back then. What was your go-to spots growing up to buy like CDs, tapes when you probably first were getting into music and shit?
Yeah, it was cassette tapes. It was the first cassette tape I ever bought, and it's one of my favorite albums to this day. Get a Grip by Aerosmith.
Yeah, that was my first CD. Or Might have been my second CD, but that was the first one I fell in love with. That was my first concert. Unbelievable. And
the cow's udder udder is pierced. You know, my parents saw the cover of the cassette. They were like, "Oh, great! This is great."
He's getting into that damn rock and roll music, and it's like right in your face. Robbie, you know the guy who helped produce it, or like, don't you know someone? Who's
Mike knows someone that wrote "Living on the Edge." The guy who wrote "Living on the Edge" with them, Mark Hudson. He played in his band
Mark
for a long
Hudson.
time.
Yeah, Mark Hudson wrote "Living on the Edge" and a couple other tracks on that record, and wound up producing the next, I think, 2 Aerosmith records.
Produced a lot of Ringo Starr stuff too. My guy over here.
That's a great first album. Mine was I think my first album was The Chronic by Dr. Dre, which is when my parents were like, "Oh, he's getting into the hip hop." The older kids have gotten him into the gangster rap in the suburbs. I think my first single, I believe, was Janet Jackson, "Escapade." So I mean, singles and CDs. And remember, you would like get the flip side and you listen to the other side. It was never that good on the single, right? And
the B-sides.
The B-sides and stuff like that. So,
and I wasn't allowed to buy albums that had a parental advisory sticker on the cover. So eventually I figured out, life hack. I would carefully remove the price tag from the outside of the plastic and stick the price tag over where the parental advisory sticker was.
We did that at the Wall. The Wall was a CD store, and you would get a sticker if you got it from the Wall. And if you broke your CD, you could just bring it back. So you put the Wall sticker where it says you bought it from the Wall over the parental advisory. That was our way of doing it. Like, just kids just want to hear some curse words, just some good innocent fun, right, Mikey? Yet if my kids did, I'd be like, "What the fuck do you think you were doing?" I'd say more curse words than the entire album if I caught them. That's why, as parents, we have to like check ourselves and be like, we were kind of little punks in our own right back in the day.
And Rob, these CDs we were buying at some good, were like $20 a pop.
That's
they
crazy.
Were not cheap, man.
And that's when you look at now, like the album charts, and you're like, how did so and so sell so many CDs and make so much money back then? It's like, well, they were all $20 a pop, and you had to buy the physical thing. It wasn't you could stream your favorite song. If you like one song, you got to buy the whole CD to hear it. That's like mind blowing to me. My first CDs, very much a growing up in the 2000s thing, were CDs that Mike burned me off iTunes. That was just like Robbie's Rock. I still have them in my car, and it would be just like, here are the tracks you got to learn. Almost like, I feel like you did it almost chronologically from like Twisted Sister to like Blink-182 or Linkin Park or whoever was out at that point. And my version of the parental advisory sticker was by Robbie's Rock 3 when he was putting Slipknot on there. He just wouldn't write the Slipknot songs on the front of the thing, and my mom wouldn't know.
That's a good brother, man. That's a good older brother. Introducing you to Slipknot and then not writing it. That's
some would say great older brother. Some would say introducing, 5 or 6 year old to Slipknot isn't the best idea. But
the ages are them. All right, we've heard Robbie's. Mike, can I hear your impersonation of your mom finding out that you put Slipknot on Robbie's CD?
You want to know what? That ain't right. Okay.
Oh, that's a classic.
He doesn't
Mama
need
Fox.
to be listening
that ain't
to
right.
That ain't
right.
He doesn't need to be listening to that.
I love the basement.
That's classic Mama Fox. All right, and now I want to talk television shows, cartoons, normal television shows. What were the all-timers for you, Clem?
So number one, if you're talking, you're saying TV shows and cartoons, the number one with a bullet favorite show of my life when it was humming at its absolute peak is The Simpsons. The Simpsons coming on TV was a like staple of the Clemenza kid. I've said the name. They don't, the Clem household. Excuse me. I don't want people to think I'm Clem. That's my name, Clem. The Clem kids. It would be me, my sister, and my brother. They'd gather up into my room, and for 8 to 8:30, Simpsons were on. For NFL, a lot of people say when the NFL is over or you hear the 60 minutes TikTok, that's the moment that school is coming. For me, it was the shh, and it's like, and it's like, God damn it, tomorrow's school. Simpsons at its absolute best is the best TV show of all time. Seasons 1 through 8, I think you go up to 12 is where it's still at its powers. But I think 3 to 8 is where you're looking at just, if you just want to eat the cream of the Oreo cookie, that is the absolute best of the best. And I can still watch to this day and absolutely fucking laugh my ass off at it. So that was the number one show with me.
So, Clem, let me ask you, who did you think shot Mr. Burns?
I would have bet my life savings. Actually, I would responsibly bet on the Barstool Sportsbook that it was Homer. I thought it was Homer. I thought, I'm a chalk guy. I'm not too bright. I don't really look too deep into it. That was a moment, Mike. I mean, that summer of Who Shot Mr. Burns, and they kind of did it. I think Dallas, right, is Who Shot JR. They patterned it after that.
Is that Simpsons didn't really make that up, that concept?
But we can call in all summer and vote for who you thought it was. And
did you call in, Mike?
Yeah. I mean, everyone called up and just over and over again said, I think it's this person or that person, because you were entered in some kind of a raffle or contest to, be chosen. If you guessed right and they chose your name and you guessed right, it was like prize money or something involved, right, Clem?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because that's just what you did back in the day. There was really, if there was internet, it was very primitive at that time. So you called up 800 numbers, maybe a 900 number or two if you could sneak it. And you would remember the soda pop or the soda top, it's you won a whatever. That was basically the extent of how you got entertainment back then. So yeah, calling up those numbers was a big thing. And did you vote on it? And that's how they decided who did it? Or did the writers just decide that, spoiler alert, Maggie killed Mr.
Maggie, right?
Which is a hell of a twist from just the outside looking at it until you see how it all goes down. It makes a little more sense.
I love that. I love the whole idea of who killed so-and-so. They did it on the Family Guy years later, but it was more of a Stewie finally kills Lois thing. I think it was for their 100th episode.
Oh.
And then they went through it. I actually had the Simpsons box sets on DVD, a lot of them. For a long time, I went through them, and I got really into The Simpsons. Just as you were saying the prize money thing, too, it reminds me, I watched so much Guts, Double Dare, Legends of the Hidden Temple, but the reruns, obviously. I wasn't around when it was on TV. And when they would show, we're giving away all expenses paid trip to Nickelodeon Studios or whatever, and they would show the whole outdoor, every time be oh my God, imagine I could win that. And I think it was closed by the time I was even watching it, to the point where it's just a ridiculous pipe dream. But that is one of the 90s things I think of, in terms of that feels very 90s to me. Legends of the Hidden Temple, totally.
Mike, were you a big, if you had to choose one Nickelodeon game show, what would you choose? There's a lot. I mean, Nick Arcade was always a good one. Guts, obviously. I was a Double Dare guy. I love the nose picking. I love the obstacle. I said, my one thing at Barstool, I'm going to get us to run the obstacle course one day. That's all I want to do. And then I can fucking leave, get a real job, whatever the fuck. But I loved it. Like Robbie said, the trip to space camp was oh my God, if they win a trip to space camp, that would be the coolest thing ever. So that was mine. But I don't know. Did you have one that was more so?
Yeah, Double Dare. I was a Double Dare guy for sure.
The questions were easy enough too, right? You could get the questions right as a kid too, which was nice.
Yeah, I'd watch Guts, and I didn't want to be one of the other two dudes that didn't make it up the aggro crag.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd watch Legends of the Hidden Temple, and nobody ever made it through that shit. I can count on one hand how many times I saw somebody finish the final maze at Legends of the Hidden Temple.
They're bringing that back for adults. They're doing an adult version of Legends of the Hidden Temple.
I blogged about that.
For 600-pound people.
Yes. Yeah. Discovery Plus coming soon on Discovery Plus. I'm trying to I feel like I blogged that 5 years ago, and I'm still waiting to see it. I'm dying to see adults just
maybe they're doing it Squid Game style, so it's going to take a while. It's going to be intense. People are dying. Mike, when I say cartoons or TV shows from the 90s, what comes to mind for you?
Obviously wrestling, Saturday morning, Superstars. That was Clem, when you said you kind of bailed on the Bret Hart era, that was my bread and butter. That's really what I had, man, because I was just sort of coming off, getting into WWF in the 80s and 90s. And like you said, Hulk was gone, Warrior was gone. They had the steroid trial, and all these big monster guys had to, go underground. Like Obi-Wan. They're hiding out in the caves, man, letting the juice drain out of their systems. So we had Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon and these, not roided out monster guys, but great wrestlers. And that was.
And then looking back at the Hogan Warrior era through you look at what looks the most interesting on the VHS shelf. at the mom and pop store.
Yeah. Yeah. And the figures, man. I mean, the Mama Fox will tell you, I was a very easy kid to watch when I was a boy, because you would sit me down in front of the TV, put on some wrestling with my ring and my figures, and I was all set for a little while, man. The other things were the Ninja Turtles cartoon. I was a big Turtles kid for sure. And X-Men, the animated series for sure.
We talked about that a lot on this podcast.
I can still hear that song in my heart, man. Are you happy it's coming back? Are you like stoked for it and get the kids into it too?
I am, because my son got into the original series even before it was on Disney Plus. He got into it, and
into it too.
He started asking for the toys, and I was just like, "Oh no, that's not like I go to Target and pick up a Sentinel. I'm gonna have to scour eBay for this shit."
Whatnot.com. We got to get them on
there
Whatnot.
You go. Yeah, Whatnot. Yeah.
They're not cheap. Trust me. I was looking them up. I went on like Etsy or something, and I was like, "Oh, that's gonna be like I'm gonna have to make a decision if I want to buy."
How many Sentinels did we get him? He had an army.
He wanted an army of Sentinels, and I'm just like, I'm gonna have to take out a second mortgage to get this army of Sentinels in the house. So he had 6 of them at one point. Yeah.
Six of the old school '90s X-Men Sentinels, and they were pretty badass too. Like the purple and pink looking Sentinels.
And there's a picture, and he lined them all up in front of the X-Men once, and he put all of their right fists up in the air like that. And I was like, no! Don't put all their right fists up in the air, please.
We can never let him and AJ meet each other, or else there's going to be a legitimate problem.
Real bad. Yeah.
And Batman the Animated Series, obviously. That was another big one. And the toys were great for all the shows and movies we had. They really, I feel like, not only were the toys great, but I think I spoke about this in one of the Batman commentaries we did. Everything wasn't released as a collectible. So like adults weren't running to KB Toys and Toys R Us and just like buying out stock, knowing they were going right to eBay with it eventually for, a huge markup. So it was easy to get cool shit, and collect the whole set. It wasn't this like scour the earth and pay markup on aftermarket sites for stuff.
Also, this goes for everything, but like the internet, of course, makes things way easier. You get things ordered to your house, it's there in one day or whatever. But there is something to going to a toy store, not seeing the toy you want, going to the next toy store, seeing it on the shelf, and it's like, yes, this is the greatest day of my life. They had it in stock. Like, I think about that with wrestling figures all the time. Mama Fox, being the saint she is, would drive, stop to stop until we found whatever we needed. That like is completely removed. Like, do kids even have that anymore, or is it just
the
like
hunt? The hunt was the hunt was the exciting. Like,
Rob, the chase.
Rob, you can back me up on this. The best part of a rock and roll gig is the maybe 5 to 10 seconds that you're just walking out onto the stage.
Totally. And you're like,
the anticipation,
shit, here we go.
The hunt. It's all, the Sears toy catalog that used to come in the mail before Christmas time. You would just flip right to the action figure section and like start circling what you wanted. Yeah.
Rob, I'm not going to you got to get at this store, Rob. We're running out of gas here. That's my Mama Fox. Yeah. I've been Mama Fox one time, but I feel like I've known her my whole life just based on hearing the impressions.
Toys and comic books, she would do it both for.
She's the absolute best. I blogged it the other day that they're bringing Toys R Us back in all the Macy's, which just feels like it's like one inoperable disease for another. It's like Macy's are going to die soon, so I'm not going to get too attached. However, I've brought my kids to like Kohl's, and it's like, all right, you guys can like get something in the toy section for each other for Christmas. And I wanted to blow my brains out after like 5 minutes. I couldn't imagine taking kids to a Toys R Us where the entire store, they're just begging you to buy it all. So it's something that I'm not used to in this world, but I still remember, like you said, Mike, like just seeing the toy you were looking for. It's there. Same kind of goes with a Blockbuster or the movie you've been waiting for 3 weeks, or the WrestleMania. I want to watch WrestleMania, 5, but I just can't get it. It's that some kid keeps renting it out. Just being able to see that, it was just as much about the chase as it was about, life's a journey, not a destination, as they said in Get a Grip once upon a time, right?
Nice callback.
That's my favorite. That was my favorite song. Amazing. It was my favorite.
And not only seeing the toy you wanted on the shelf, but at Toys R Us, if you were going for a specific video game, the ticket in the envelope, because the video games weren't on the shelves or even in the glass case. They were in a separate booth in the front of the Toys R Us. You had to go to the aisle and get a ticket out of an envelope under the picture of the game cover. So if under that game cover the envelope was empty, you weren't getting that game. They were sold out.
That's a completely foreign idea to me. Get a ticket, pick up a ticket for a video game. You've lost me.
I could still see the little red message, and it's like, sorry, like needs to restock. But
yeah, then you have to go outside and open up your pack of candy cigarettes to unwind after that disappointment.
And then you go in the front where all the people who were waiting for their tickets, and you're like, what did this kid get? And it's like, could be a bike, could be a video game, right? It could be, Sonic the Hedgehog 3. You never knew what was coming out. And it was like those kids, they probably had a birthday or they saved their money up, whatever it was.
They're Jeffrey dollars.
Jealous. Yeah, exactly. They're Jeffrey dollars, just in hushed tones as everyone watched. And I do feel like I still remember, for me at least, and granted, I was getting older, like the whole toy thing kind of died. And I don't want to piss off prequel Stan, Fran, whatever you want to say, but the prequels, they went so hard after the toys because they were trying to recreate the magic of the original trilogy in terms of the toys, the rarity of it, the crazy collectors. I remember going after toys and my friend was like, if your barcode ends with an 035, that's the super rare Darth Maul. And I was like, oh my God, I'm going to be a millionaire. So you're chasing these toys to then keep in a box. No offense, Jeff D. Lowe. I know that's what he does. And it's like, I just want to play with the toys. And at this point, I'm trying to like make money on it. I kind of was the same way. Mike, were you into cards? Like I was into X-Men cards, but I was really into like basketball and baseball cards as a kid growing up. So it was kind of like gambling. That toys became gambling for me more than just collecting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We had all sorts of sports cards. We used to trade them at lunchtime, at school. And I got into X-Men cards. That's another thing that's a real 90s thing that I still have. A 94 Marvel complete set. It was 150 cards and like 18 special cards that were sort of like holographic on the back. And I got the whole set of those, and I spent probably an entire summer going, like you said, going from comic book shop to card store to just search for what I didn't have and what I had left. And and once in a while, you would trade away a card that you looking back, like you got out of school and you immediately regret trading that Ken Griffey Jr. card or whatever it was. And you're like, why did I do that? I didn't even like Jeff Bagwell. But here I am.
That's a meal for life as a Mets fan.
Is that also how you sort of like learned superheroes back then? Both of you really, like through cards? Because you didn't have
I learned more through the cards than through the books.
Right? Yeah.
Same here, 100%. I think Brennan Clancy mentioned it too, that I love that X-Men card set. And I don't know what year I think I just had the X-Men set, but it could have been the whole Marvel. I just looked it up, the 94 set, and there's a 91 set. And I would the card it would always have great artwork on it, obviously. And then the back, it would either have like a bio of the person, or sometimes I remember the power is like 7 out of 10, dexterity. I didn't know what the fuck dexterity meant. I was like, oh man, this guy's really good though. He's really dexterous. And that's the kind of shit but it was like something just like with the baseball stats I just inherently loved. And that definitely did. Like the toys were great. I had an Archangel toy for X-Men. I probably read one book with Archangel in it. I don't know if he was even in the cartoon at that point. I probably read it, and I had his card though, I know. And I fucking just loved that toy. I played with it nonstop. And it's the toy. It was the comic cards, which I have somewhere as well, Mike. I have to find it in this house. I know I have that complete set somewhere. And
all right, Clem, I got to bring it back here.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
This is one of my son's Sentinel toys, because he got so into the X-Men series that he wanted all the old stuff.
And also, he loves the heels. Like, he roots for the bad guys. So, of course, the Sentinels are his favorite thing.
And that's why, again, we have to keep them separated, because AJ has about 7 Bowser toys, and he just loves Bowser. I'm like, this is
Bowser is his guy as well. Oh, there's the OG Wolverine. You got to be watching on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast feed, this is a good YouTube episode.
Mike, let me see the claws go in and out. They go in and out.
Nah, it's busted.
Oh, no.
I could push them, but little Gambit action.
Gambit with the cape, with the plastic cape, reminiscent of old Kenner toys in the Star Wars era.
There's no doubt in my mind Feige is going to nail Gambit, because they didn't really nail Gambit in the movies. They nailed him in the cartoon, though. And our boy
Cyclops was always my favorite. In the movies, they made him a bit of a bitch.
My wife's exact word, she goes, Cyclops is a pansy. So every time I see Cyclops in the movies, he's a pansy, not in the comic books, though.
Yeah,
it's kind of a cuck, I believe would be the new word to this. Like Wolverine would just fuck Jean Grey.
Of a cuck, yeah.
And he just
He'd
watched.
stand there while Wolverine would like flirt with her right in front of his face and be like, "Do something about it. Take your pussy ass sunglasses off." Like,
one more note on '90s toys. Clem, back me up on this. McDonald's Happy Meal toys were legit in the '90s. They were good.
They were fucking, and they could make the rotation of regular toys, which is not easy to say for a free toy.
Exactly.
And our kids now, they'll get them, and you'll get maybe 1 a month or 1 month where you have a run where. So it's kind of funny. This just happened here. That's why I say it. There was a Marvel. I don't know what movie it was for. It might have been Avengers or something like that. And the kids got a Scarlet Witch, and there's a Hulk. And they're still in the rotation of the toys. All the other ones are sitting in a plastic, in a landfill somewhere, a few miles down the road, I'm sure. But all the other, that's the only set of McDonald's toys. And AJ actually said it. He goes, "Where's my Hulk doll?" And that's kind of his Hulk toy is the McDonald's toy. So back in the day, those shits were, even the glasses, you get like the collectible glasses. We think we talk Batman
Forever ones. Yeah.
Yep. So
and there were rare occasions where maybe you were doing McDonald's right before or right after like a movie theater trip.
Mm-hmm.
And once in a great while, the stars would align and you would get the Happy Meal toy of the movie you were just either at or going to. And it's like, Xbox gives you achievements for certain tasks. That was a 90s kid achievement day. You get the Happy Meal toy of the movie you're going to or have just been to.
We had a whole bin in our basement when I was growing up of the hand-me-down Happy Meal toys. And it was a big bin, too. It was like, I remember so many Disney ones. We had toys for every single Disney movie, and they were all Happy Meal toys. And they were all good, too. Some of them were like stuffed animals. Some of them were like finger puppets. Others were actual action figures. I remember we had a Peter Pan one in particular, where it was like every piece of every toy from the Happy Meal was a big piece of the pirate ship. And you could put together a pirate ship this big with a Peter Pan and a Captain Hook. And it's like a full play set that you were getting through your chicken McNuggets and French fries. It's crazy. It's like a legit play set. So I could definitely attest to that and like all the hand-me-downs.
That's the thing too. Like it would make you like sometimes you feel like you had to complete the set, which this day and age, there's really not much. There was actually a Thor one, Thor: Love and Thunder, where they like put this on your phone or like tablet, and then you could play like a game, and it looked like a like Guitar Hero. It was the dumbest shit I've ever seen. I was so excited to show the kids, and they're like, "What? Can I just play with the toy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, get out of here." But that's the kind of quality. Even I'm sure, Mike, did you have like? I still remember they'd have like chicken nugget toys where they would have like the McDonald's food or the characters.
I almost said to Robbie, there's a handful of things in that Happy Meal toy bin, like rubber chicken nuggets, but the face half worn off, because I put them in a ladder match against my Undertaker figure.
Talking about movies, talking about going to movies, Happy Meal toys, movies like that. When you look back at the 90s, what were like the big movies that you looked forward to the most that delivered that hit? And then if there were ones that disappointed you, I guess that as well. But when you look back, like what are the ones where you're like, that's a fucking 90s movie right there?
Do you have one, Mike, off the top of your head?
Yeah, not that I was looking forward to because I didn't know much about it. We got taken and it changed my world. It was Jurassic Park.
Great one.
I just knew it was a dinosaur movie, and up until that point, the only dinosaur movie I had ever seen was The Land Before Time. So I was just like, we're going to a dinosaur movie, okay, fine. But then it's like Jurassic Park was mind blowing in terms of special effects, and couldn't believe what you were seeing.
You were a dinosaur for Halloween that year, right?
I was Dilophosaurus, the one that spit all that shit at Newman out in the fucking rainforest. Yeah, I'll send you a picture. I'll
put it in the podcast. Yeah.
All right, Mike, no spitting on people right now. Standing from these people, don't spit at them.
Yeah, and the next year showing up to school, it was like Jurassic Park folders, Jurassic Park Trapper Keeper, Jurassic Park, I had the toys. It was like, that was a big one.
When you said 90s movies, Robbie, that was the first one that came into my head because it was just like a monstrous moment. Just it was like Spielberg.
Unintended.
Yeah, pun intended. And like at this point, like Entertainment Tonight, like just the shit my parents would watch or my mom would watch, you know, like or whatever the entertainment news shows. It was like this shit looks like dinosaurs. It's crazy. And it was kind of like we feel like we evolved like 5 steps. It's like the first time you see HDTV,
the
you're
CG,
like, yeah, you're like, how did we go from
jumped.
color TV to being able to see like sweat pouring down people's heads? It still doesn't make sense to me all these years later. And I mean, Biggie make dough like Jurassic Park. It just made so much money. And the kids watched it the other day. I was sleeping. I wasn't feeling good. But my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old watched it, and they weren't like too scared. I thought it was scarier. I think my wife fast forward the goat scene. There's a couple of scenes you have to be smart about. You know, Clever Girl. There are some things that can kind of scare kids.
It holds up so well, though. It's such a good movie to this day. And it's so like compact almost. Like it feels so quick when you watch it now. It goes by like that. And you're like, oh, what a great little movie we just put on.
Yep. Till this day, that's Jurassic Park, still holds up. And I never realized this, and someone tweeted about it a few years ago. I feel they were the ones that brought supersize to McDonald's. That was the whole, it was like Jurassic, it was like dino sized, I think, is they were saying supersize. So the supersize was born from that, which obviously put McDonald's on a whole other path. And then Supersize Me kind of killed it. But that was the thing that introduced that.
I hate that they killed it because I never got to order a supersized meal. I would like, don't take that away from me. I could look at me. I could go for a supersized meal.
Bob Fox might have made weight if he had supersize in his life. It would have been a lot easier. God knows he had the toys, right? You guys were going.
I would love a supersized Big Mac meal. Just when I'm real hungry. The giant Coke. I watched that in health class in 7th grade, and I was like, "This looks great." What are you talking about?
Oh, they were showing supersized me in health class.
We did watch it. Yeah,
Oh,
Miss Provenzano, who Mike had as well.
Yeah.
Shout out Miss Provenzano. That's a good teacher,
she
right
was
there.
a good teacher. She was actually a great teacher. Yeah, all the students liked her.
I love it.
Any other movies come to mind for you, Clem?
Mine was this was a movie that I thought was going to be good, but I still remember like I was in a neighborhood with older kids, and I remember going to them, and I was like, they were like 3 or 4 years old. They weren't like I wasn't hanging out with people 10 years older than me or anything. But I remember being like, I don't care what anyone says. The Lion King was fucking awesome, and it was just one of those things. I was like, I'm standing on this corner. I remember even like the older kids were like, "What are you talking like this little baby?" And then like a few days later, like, "Yo, The Lion King," like, you know, like it was just one of those movies. It's one of those things that kind of
Elton John, come on, yeah.
Yeah, the music was great. It was great from top to bottom. The characters were wonderful. I mean, like I still fast forward past the Mufasa scene. I have no problem admitting that at all. I don't want to see that. I don't need to see it. He just is sleeping. That's all he's doing. Simba leaves, and then Simba comes back, and he's still sleeping somewhere. I don't know.
Did you guys see the remake of The Lion King?
I did not. I'm happy I didn't.
Yeah. It was, you know, everyone talked about it like, oh my God, that's going to be awesome. And there is really no emotion on any of the animals' faces. They're all like just kind of, they look like real animals, which makes it a bit strange. I was just going
to say, you couldn't really animate those cute little faces.
No, it's not nearly as cute. You're like, oh, that's a lion. It could rip my face off. Siegfried and Roy. Siegfried and Roy? Sigmund and Roy?
Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I don't feel like Hakuna Matata has the same oomph about it when there's real life animals instead of like cartoons. Did you guys ever see Lion King 1.5?
Oh yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah. You know what's crazy is Ken Jack has a VHS collection on his desk now. It's his new thing. He's collecting like classic VHSs. So I looked up top selling VHSs of all time. It is crazy. But Lion King 1.5 and I think Aladdin 2, The Return of Jafar, 2 straight to VHS movies are like in the top 15 top selling.
We had Return of Jafar.
We definitely had Return of Jafar because I remember that one, and I remember I think Mama Fox got me Lion King 1.5 for Valentine's Day one year. She would always put together a little like almost like an Easter basket, but for Valentine's Day, and I think that was in there one year. It was just crazy to me that these like straight to VHS movies they sold like 15 million copies. I was like, holy shit, that's like really impressive.
I just looked it up. That came out in 2004. Like that's the time of the DVD. And this is including like it's just straight VHS sales, right?
Yep.
That's not. And I don't know if you saw it. I happened to be in the office on Tuesday. Ken Jack got himself a TV.
The TV with the VHS player in
included, and it's like 8 inches big. It's tiny. It has like you have to like hit the buttons. It's like a little wonky. It has its quirks, which I love about it. And I'm like, dude, you could just watch VHS and he threw on an Indiana Jones.
I know he had Raiders on.
It was so
I didn't tell him yet. I told him I bought him a mystery one. I'll reveal what the VHS is to the My Mom's Basement listeners. Nobody tell Ken Jack because it'll be at the office in a few days. He didn't have the first Star Wars. I was like, dude, you're starting a VHS collection. You got Spaceballs, but you don't have Star Wars. So I got him the original. It was like $9 on eBay. The original Star Wars. It's a must.
Obviously, we're talking original. We're not doing special editions here, right?
No,
Rob? We're not
no,
having, you know, all the.
I think it would actually be. It might be harder to get a special edition on VHS. I don't know.
That was a big 90s. That was a
90s.
big 90s moment when they released the special editions.
Yeah,
back
I
in the
actually
day.
have our Star Wars VHS tapes behind me. That was like one of the few things I saved from Hurricane Sandy. I was like, VHS tapes, we don't need those, but the Star Wars that we grew up on, we need the Star Wars VHS
The Sacred Jedi text.
So I took that, and I took WWF's Most Unusual Matches, my first wrestling VHS.
First ladder match ever, Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship.
That's right, and I talked to Bret Hart about it, and surprise, surprise, he was pretty bitter about the WWF stealing his idea on that one.
I have to admit this too, and I think I've admitted in the basement in the past, but I'm around, you know, friends and family here. The Star Wars, when they re-released, I guess, did they release it in the theaters first and then they released the special editions, or the special editions and they went to the theaters before the prequels? Do you remember, Mike, how that went with the order of that?
They released the special editions into theaters first and then a VHS set.
Okay. I think I watched, I never was into, this is the crazy thing. I wasn't into Star Wars when I was young. It's just like, I would watch a minute of it, like, usually like the Battle of Hoth would be on, and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck's going on in this thing right now. And
I wasn't into Star Wars until they released, not the special editions, but they had released a VHS trilogy set along with, in 95, Kenner Toys got the rights to start making Power. They were called Power of the Force figures. So they released a trilogy VHS set, and somebody got me that for Christmas along with, no, those are the special editions.
These are special.
Yeah. But they released the new Kenner figures along with that VHS set, and that, for me, somebody got me, you know, the tapes for Christmas and a couple of the figures, and then I was down the rabbit hole and, you know, never looked back. Yeah.
Yep.
Those are classic covers right there. I believe those are Drew Struzan ones. So good. Also, always confusing. Return of the Jedi. What's up with those lightsaber colors? They actually corrected him on that, but on the original poster, they have those lightsaber colors flipped. Luke has red, yeah. Vader has blue, which made people think, like, is Luke going to the dark side?
And like, again, like, we were always crazy nerds even back then. They just didn't have Reddit and Twitter and stuff for us to post our stuff. Maybe a message board or two. That was really it. But it's funny, and I know the covers you're talking, the VHS, that's what it was. My brother was into them. He got the movies, and I was like, all right, let me check these out. And then, you know, I was just like RA back in fucking 78, being like, holy shit, that's what everyone's talking. And I was hooked from the minute I got goosebumps just thinking about it. The minute that crawl went up, and then I was in the theater, I was buying the toys. I was so incredibly excited for the prequels. I was so excited, Mike, it was, I didn't even have to wait. Like, I wasn't waiting for these for, you know, 15 years or whatever it was to get there. But just like the few years that I got into Star Wars to when they came out, I felt like my life was going to be complete seeing them. And then I left the theater being like, they just talked about taxation without representation for like 2 hours. Felt like I was in history class. I was so let down by it all. No offense, prequel Stan Fran, but man, like that was like a whole.
So you were let down immediately. Mike, were you let down immediately, or did you like the prequels when they came out?
I was a little older too. We'll just preface with that because it's more of a kid's movie.
No, I was a little let down for sure because it felt like Clem said, like, this doesn't feel like Star Wars. What are they talking about? It's kind of the vibe, you know. Double lightsaber blade, cool. You know,
very cool.
Yeah.
But then they killed Darth Maul, and you're like, what is happening? Where are we going from here? I thought that was going to be like the new Vader. He was going to be the guy in every movie they were trying to get at.
Should have been.
You know, he just got halved, and it's over.
Yeah.
We know who should have been. The real
Darth Jar Jar.
Mike, can you imagine little Mike fucking Fox going to the theater and then you're like, no, not Jar Jar, and then he's Misa so angry at him and he's fucking chopping people up. It would have been incredible and made all the disappointment of that first movie just wash away.
I want them to do, like, you know how Marvel did the What If cartoon show. I want them to do a Darth Jar Jar cartoon episode, just so we could see that. That would be funny.
I think episode 1 has aged gracefully, though. Like, I've gone back since I've had kids of my own.
Better than 2.
Better than 2 for sure. Yeah.
And 3, of course. I think
Yeah.
3 is just a straight up good movie. Let me hit another ad read before we continue here for HelloFresh, our friends at HelloFresh. I'm actually eating a late dinner tonight after this podcast, and it's a HelloFresh taco dinner. Savor every last second of summer with HelloFresh. They deliver fresh, quality produce from the farm to your door in less than a week, allowing you to enjoy the delicious flavors of the season right from home. Heading out for one last vacation? Update your delivery address and enjoy HelloFresh at your vacation destination with just a click. Plans are flexible, so they work with your changing schedule, and they have over 55 weekly options, so you could take the stress out of meal planning and prepping from family friendly to fit, wholesome. HelloFresh has tasty and nutritious meals. They could even give you meals under 20 minutes. It's a quick process. It's an easy process with the little card they provide you. And if you go to HelloFresh.com/Robbie16 and then use the promo code Robbie16, you'll get 16 free meals across 7 free boxes and 3 free gifts. These gifts may be 90s X-Men toys. They may be pieces of lettuce. We don't know what the gifts are. We still don't know. But of course, HelloFresh.com/16Robbie. Use the promo code 16Robbie. It's the best deal on the internet. You might be able to get the same deal at other podcasts, but it doesn't support My Mom's Basement. So make sure you use the My Mom's Basement code. And thanks to everyone who supported last month, by the way. I should, before I continue, say that because 1.3 million views on YouTube. Pretty damn good. Even KFC texted us and he was like, that's pretty damn good for YouTube. So appreciate it. If there's any people out there that are like, enough with the goddamn shorts, I get it. I know. I'm with you, but the shorts are the ones that are blowing up. So I got to keep going and keep the basement lights on.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, exactly. If you like the shorts, I'm going to keep making those. The rock and roll stories, I'm doing some nerd ones. I might even do, I thought about it today, the same type of vibe as the rock and roll stories, but for old UFC stories and maybe wrestling stories. I think there's a lot that are crazy stories that I could fit in under a minute while you're scrolling. Maybe you learn something new. All right. The last thing I want to talk about 90s wise is hobbies and trends. Did you fall into any 90s trends looking back? And hobby wise, like, what was the hangout spot for you guys? Were you going to the baseball field to hang out? That's kind of what it was for me and my friends. We're going to the arcade. Clem, were you going to the roller rink? Talking Stranger Things. Like, what was the hobbies, the trends for you during the 90s?
First of all, the roller rink is coming back. For people who didn't listen to our Stranger Things episode, I predicted it. What did I say? 2030. Yeah. Roller rinks will be making a comeback. There'll be articles about the comeback of the roller rink and the arcade, which is part of the roller rink.
The arcade, I hope, does make a comeback. The arcade's the best. Come on.
Arcades were big for me. I'm in the burbs, so I'm sure people that are closer to cities, there might be different things. But for me growing up, man, KFC says this all the time about our age range, at least for me and Mike. We're kind of the greatest generation where we remember life before the internet and life after the internet. We know what it's like just to play with toys. And kind of the thing we would do growing up in my neighborhood. Again, I had a good group of kids, a little couple older, couple younger. We would just go out, ride our bikes out in the neighborhood, and then just play baseball, basketball, football, whatever it may be, until you went home for dinner, go back out, play manhunt at night, come back, and then start fresh the next morning. I can't even fathom having that much energy to just wake up in the morning, let alone do that full day worth of stuff now. But man, we just lived it was the fucking, whatever the American dream is supposed to be, at least for kids. I lived it because it was the fucking best. And we, as you got older, go on the internet, you're fucking chatting with, going to chat rooms, soiling your soul that way, saving money on those CDs. Because the reason Napster fucking hit is because I got burned by so many $20 CDs that sucked because one single was good. I still remember Montel Jordan. I bought a Montel Jordan CD. I was like, this thing fucking stinks. Other than whatever, I think Get It On Tonight was like the one good song on it. I just heard it on the radio the other day. I go, oh, you fucking tricked me with this, Montel. And I was like, fuck it, Napster. Napster, followed by LimeWire, all that kind of stuff. But before the internet came in, ruined my brain, turned me into the smut blogger I've become. I kind of became Vader. That was my Anakin to Vader moment, was the internet. Before that, man, it was just, outside on your bike.
We spent so much money at Sam Goody that we were all full on willing to give our home family computers cancer from LimeWire eventually. Like, it's gonna go bad eventually. I don't care. I can't go back to Sam Goody again. It's no more money for it.
What about you, Mike, in terms of what was the spot for you to hang out in the 90s?
The baseball fields were a big spot.
Yeah.
And we, like Clem said, he described it to a T, baseball, wiffle ball, somebody's pool during the day, you get lucky on a hot day, the ice cream truck could go by, you'd break your tooth on a gumball eye from a turtle pop,
Of course, rest in peace to the Choco Taco.
Too soon.
Too soon.
Mike, what was your go-to?
The WWF wrestling bar.
Yep, number one to this day. If they could kill the WWF wrestling bar, they could have killed the Choco Taco. And I just talked to my mom. I was at lunch with her yesterday randomly, and she goes, we used to ride bikes on the Bronx River Parkway, me and my family. They shut it down on Sundays. You could take like a ride like 7 miles down, and you'd stop at the ice cream man halfway. And she goes, you would always eat a Choco Taco. I'm like, shit, it goes back that far. And WWF Pop, I have number one in my all-time power rankings. Number two is Choco Taco. Yeah. So I'm right with you, Mikey.
I definitely, same thing after dinner, back out after dark to play Manhunt, and couldn't even fathom nowadays sending my kids out in the dark to just go play Manhunt. Just go hide. Where? Anywhere you want in town. In the dark. It's insane.
Yeah, it is pretty insane.
Trends, we definitely fell into some. I knew I tried to hop on some trends just because you didn't want to be the only kid, showing up to 7th grade without a Omega Fireball yo-yo.
A yo-yo was a trend at one point. Yeah, it was the cool thing to have, a yo-yo.
Everyone be outside on the playground, just trying to. I don't know why.
People got to get the YouTube just to see Mike do that on the YouTube. That was an incredible fucking trick you pulled right there.
Pogs. I had Pogs. It was a stupid game that was not a whole lot of fun, but we bought tons of them.
More fun to collect the Pogs than to play the game, correct?
Yeah, I guess. And the slammers, people will look at this slammer. Who's got a spinner? Oh, it looks like a saw blade. Ooh, I wonder if that would cut you. Just kids being stupid.
Did you have Jenko jeans at any point?
I did have Jenko jeans.
You did?
It was a hot topic in the household about where on my waist I would actually be wearing them.
And
I used to have to prove that I had to have them up. And then, of course, like any other kid, as soon as you get to school, you pull them down and you think you're in a Snoop Dogg video.
I was going to say, what was the inspiration for you to get the Jenko jeans? Was it like Snoop Dogg?
No, it was just, it was that thing. It was just what was the thing to have.
You had parachute pants, right?
We grew up wearing a lot of Tommy Hilfiger because our aunt worked for Tommy Hilfiger and was able to get us a lot of, good clothes at, probably a little or no cost.
We had a Tommy Hilfiger Game Boy, Clem. Our Game Boy was Tommy Hilfiger brand.
That is some fancy fucking shit right there. Yeah. That's Jersey right there. That's Jersey. Fell off the back of the truck. Don't worry where it came from.
Yeah.
I love them like had Jenko jeans. That's incredible, though.
Goosebumps books. That was a trend that everyone, had their favorite Goosebumps books. Eventually,
the show
they made
too?
that into a show.
Was that a 90s thing? Or was that later, the show came?
The show was never as popular as the books.
Yeah.
I remember the show having an episode that really freaked me, and I think it freaked Steph out when it came out, and then it freaked me out years later, where the girl puts the mask on in Halloween, and it sticks to her face, and she can't get the mask off. Ooh, creepy. Yeah. R.L. Stein, shout out.
Are You Afraid of the Dark was another thing. We weren't supposed to watch Are You Afraid of the Dark on Saturday nights. You had Snick on, and, we stayed up and watched them anyway. And our sister was, like crying herself to sleep every night. But, that's being a kid. We were, like Clem said, we were kind of the last generation to know that when the street lights started coming on, it was time to start heading home soon.
Yeah.
And instead, now we just stay up with the little lights on our computers till 3 a.m. like God did not intend to happen. And that's why all our brains are fucking cooked right now.
The blue light. Yeah. Clem, did you have any trends that you hopped on?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, I was almost like someone that would not do something if I thought it was becoming too trend. I don't know if I was a hipster in that regard.
Sounds like you were a little hipster, Clem.
I just I remember I used to love Dave. I remember loving Dave Matthews Band, for example, right? I remember I was in on them very early. I saw a show with them with my dad who loved the drummer there.
Carter Belford, yeah.
Yeah. And then I remember it became a thing where it was a year or two later, it was I saw 18 Dave concerts. Oh, I saw 20 Dave. And I'm just oh man, this is
everyone calling him Dave. Yeah. Dave Matthews fans, there's nothing they love more than being oh yeah, I love Dave. Yeah. When did you see Dave? You see the set list Dave played the other night? Yeah.
And yeah, that drove me crazy. And I never wanted to like, the thing is, especially in school, and it's probably still the case these days, whatever you wore, you were branded as that. So if you wore Airwalks, you were a skater, you were a quote unquote freak. If you wore the Stussy, if you wore Massimo, I still remember all those kind of brands. And again, I was a big sports fan. So the one thing I guess I would do is I'd always have like a good pair of shoes. Like I hated the Bulls because I was a Knicks fan and Jordan would break my goddamn heart every year. I'd have the bandwagon Bulls fans taunting me. So I get like, a nice pair of pennies or a nice pair of, the Grand Hills or whatever it was. So that would be one thing. Like JanSport, I feel like JanSport was like, you get a couple keychains on there you get from Spencer, bring it into school.
Composition notebooks.
Yep. 5-star. Like that's the fancy shit. You get the 5-star. You're fucking. I don't even know what the big. Do kids even use notebooks? I have a kid in 3rd grade. I don't even know.
They probably just give him an iPad. They're like, here, take this. Someone told me once. My friend Dom said to me once that my tattoos look like the first page of a composition notebook if an artist just went crazy. And I was like, that's the best compliment you could ever give me.
That's awesome. Do you think tattoos will be digital by the time like our kids are older and they're like, wow, Robbie has like the analog tattoos?
Probably. They're just going to scan an image onto your arm somehow.
And it's a GIF. And it's just, we just invented GIF tattoos live on the podcast. This is
I think of Moana, how Maui's got the tattoo that like runs around on his back. Imagine that. You could have like a living like a Tamagotchi tattoo. You got to feed it and stuff.
Tamagotchis. That was I got into the Tamagotchi game. I got one just because I got obsessed with I was like, I don't know what this is. I'm a little too old for it, but I just wanted to try it. So Tamagotchis. And Mike, you said it with Pogs too. If like trading a card was bad, I could never do Pogs because then if you lose it because they slammed it and your Pog gets flipped over, that person keeps it. I would be like, I wouldn't want to lose my favorite Pogs. I had a whole set. I have the whole Simpsons collector set of Pogs because again, nice. I was a big Simpsons.
Do you still have it?
Yeah, it's somewhere. It's in like a giant memory box full of a bunch of shit I probably spent way too much money on. That's just sitting gathering dust right now.
That's one of those items that I would say is one of the most '90s items you own immediately. Oh God, your complete set of Simpsons Pogs. Like, yeah.
I mean, it's so dated that the Simpsons made a Pog joke about Alf in Pog form, and now it's like completely done full circle here. The one other thing that I could think of that I guess would be it's very 90s-ish, and I had it. And I smelt it the other day at Carnival, was Polo Sport. Polo Sport was my cologne. And
yes.
It was my first cologne I wore probably way too much. And just smelling it now, I can feel the awkward hormones in my body as I'm looking at girls that I had a crush on at a date, at a dance.
Anytime there was a school dance, you know what? Probably an extra 16, 17 sprays would be good for this. You would go into the gymnasium and your eyes would start burning from the cologne and mint gum smell in the air.
Yes. Mintaburst or Winterfresh, because those were pretty like new at the time. It was revolutionary. Those two gums right there. We had our gum in crystal flavor form.
What about Gator gum? That's a 90s thing to me.
Yes, Gator gum.
Quenching gum.
I would eat like an entire pack. Be like, all right, instead of just drinking water today, I'm going to eat an entire thing of gum. Terrible idea. We were
and the gum that would come in baseball cards.
Oh yeah, that shit that'll like break your teeth these days if you try to. I think Doug's ate one pretty recently, and it just like made his stomach hurt, and it like crumbled in his mouth.
Cotton candy flavored bubble yum is like the 90s gum.
Yes,
they still make it.
Blue and pink? Was that like a blue and pink color? Right? Yeah. Big time.
Oh, I like cotton candy flavor stuff. That's one of those artificial flavors that I think is better than the thing it's based on. Real cotton candy is a bit too messy and the shit. Yeah.
I like fake watermelon stuff more than real watermelon. Doesn't have enough
Sour
flavor
Patch
for me.
Watermelon are unbelievable.
All right, Clem, here's one. I don't think Robbie's going to be able to jump in on this, but I think you might be able to. 90s crushes, like celebrity, like TV show and movie girl crushes. When you first started
Power
realizing,
Ranger?
I like this. Pink Power Ranger.
Pink Power Ranger on the list for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the number one for me, I feel like it's going to be number one for probably 70% of the people listening, if not more. And our boy KFC, he made his like blogging bones on this one back in the day. Kelly Kapowski. She was the absolute number one. The only flaw with Kelly Kapowski. She had one flaw. That motherfucker Jeff was such a scumbag, and I'll never forgive her for breaking Zach Morris's heart. And I don't know what happened in the canon of Saved by the Bell. I feel like they got married. I hope they got kids. Maybe they got divorced. I don't know. But I'll always have like it just sullied Kelly Kapowski just a little bit that she just did Zach dirty like that. And hey, the heart wants what the heart wants, but that just broke my heart.
You know what? That was a little warning, though. That was a little warning for everybody.
Yes, that's measure what you got while you have it, right?
Is Kelly Kapowski Danielle Fishel?
That's Topanga from Boy Meets World.
Topanga, gotcha. I was
Topanga was a little young for me. Boy Meets World, I was a couple years out of it, but Tiffany Amber Thiessen was Kelly Kapowski.
Boy Meets World, how about the WWF episode of that? That's like one of the most 90s pictures ever, just like Vader in Boy Meets World.
Oh, I love crossover shit like that. And kind of, this was another thing I was going to bring up with TV, TGIF. Like, TGIF was an absolute staple in our house.
Listen, I want to, Rob, I hope this is okay that I dedicate this episode on your behalf. It is your show. But I want to dedicate this episode to anyone who's still wondering what happened to Judy Winslow.
Yes.
What is TGIF? Explain.
Oh my God, Bob! Don't say this to me. I
don't know what I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can't believe we've made it this long before.
Did you just say who's Judy Bloom? Who's looking for Judy Bloom or something? Yeah.
TGIF was thank God it's Friday. It's the Friday night lineup on ABC. You had Full House. You had Family Matters. You had Step by Step.
And then the fourth show would be the 9:30 time frame because it was marketed towards say 7 to 10, 12-year-olds. So like 9:30, you're getting to the point where it was usually a little.
Rob, that was a punishment in our house. If you fucked up, it was like no TGIF.
Oh, like, no! like in like hushed tones, it's like, did you hear what happened to Matt? No, you lost TGIF this week. Like, did he murder somebody? And I think it was the first ever the block. This might have been a little young for you. Me and Reegs actually during the pandemic, we did a thing. I think we called it Barstool TGIF, and we just did like a kind of a show where we would just bop around the internet. And like we just talked about TGIF for the first episode. We didn't really know what else to talk about. Perfect Strangers was in the first set of the were Perfect Strangers in your realm? It was Full House was an absolute lock. That was my favorite show growing up.
Yeah.
Other than Simpsons. Family Matters, loved it. Step by Step, loved it. But Perfect Strangers, I was a little young for it, but I just liked watching like Balky Bartakamus, The Dance of Joy. This means nothing to you, Robbie. You have no idea what I'm talking about right now. Nope. But Mike, did you at least have a little Perfect Strangers in your life?
I did. And funny enough, I met one of those dudes when I was very young. What were the main characters? It was Balky and who else?
Cousin Larry.
So I met Cousin Larry because he was in a Broadway show at the time with Nathan Lane. Going back to our
He's
Lion
Broadway
King
guy. Yeah.
We were all in an elevator together because my family works in the Broadway industry for many years. So I would meet people sometimes if I'd like go into work with Dad, and they were doing a show together, and we were all in this elevator together. And my dad says, "Hey, you know who that is?" And I look to my left, and it's Cousin Larry. And I was just like, "Oh, yeah, I watch your show." And he's like, "Okay." And he goes, "And you know who that is?" And I look to my right, and it's Nathan Lane. And he looks down at me, and he says, "Hi, Hakuna Matata."
Oh, come on. What an intro to a kid.
Yeah. That's incredible.
I just watched an episode of a show with Nathan Lane in it. That's fucked up that you said that.
Rob, going back to what I said, part of the TGIF lineup was Family Matters, the show with Urkel.
Of course.
Became the Urkel show by the end, basically.
Right. And the youngest daughter was named Judy. And at one point, she just went up the stairs to her room and never came back down ever again in any future seasons. And they never talked about it. She was just gone. Yeah.
Treat her like Chris Benoit. Crazy. That's nuts.
There was a whole lot of like rumors
a more
about what happened
extreme version of when they swapped the aunt on Fresh Prince. Just different actress, but instead they were like, this character doesn't exist anymore, and we're not going to reference it.
Yep, exactly.
That's fucked up. They did the Batgirl. They were like, nope, we're not doing it. Canceled.
Pour out a flaming Mo for Judy Winslow.
I never know what happened to her. There was rumors that she was young at this, but did she become a porn star when she got older? There was a thing where if they wanted to do a reboot, the cast demanded that Judy gets written back into the show. It was wild. It was wild. She just disappeared one day. It was like,
that's another thing. 90s urban myths, right? Like that. Oh yeah. Kel from Kenan and Kel died. That Marilyn Monroe or Marilyn Manson removed a rib, right? What are like the other 90s
That when Ultimate Warrior came back, it was a different Ultimate Warrior. The original one had died in a motorcycle accident or something, you know.
That one's basically the Paul is dead one that they just put on Ultimate Warrior. They're like, he wears face paint. Which, not to make this a Beatles thing, but I always think John looks so unbelievably different from the beginning to the end of the Beatles. Paul looks pretty much the same. He maybe a slightly different haircut. He grew a beard by the end, but like it's crazy that Paul was the one they stuck that weird conspiracy on and not John. He went from like a little pudgy face, like had a nice haircut, like he is up there, and then he went to massive beard, and he almost looks like Charles Manson, but like just crazy. But I digress. That's a different thing for a different time.
Bob, did you ever see the Simpsons episode when Paul McCartney's on?
I did, and there's a Ringo one as well. Yeah.
Yes, the Simpsons had like
the Paul McCartney one is why Lisa is vegetarian, right?
Yeah, that's in my top 10. I love that episode.
Him and Linda are in it together.
Yeah, then they end with "Maybe I'm Amazed" as the pigs flying through the air. It's a 10 out of 10 episode. It's incredible.
And a 10 out of 10 song. That's one of the greatest songs of all time.
Yes, that's how I learned about that song. To be honest with you, I was like,
wow,
I like that song. I'm gonna go on Napster and steal it right out of John's fucking. I'm taking money out of Paul McCartney's fucking pocket.
Lars Ulrich is gonna try to get this podcast removed from the charts after mentioning Napster so much. All right, I think we've covered a lot of the 90s stuff. Was there anything we missed that you guys wanted to bring up in this episode?
I just want to say, picture a time when you're turning on the radio and hearing Mariah Carey's "All I Want for Christmas" for the first time ever.
It had to be a transcendent moment.
It was.
You had the poster on your wall, right?
I did have the poster on my wall because when Mom got the CD, I couldn't stop looking at that album cover with Mariah Carey and that little Mrs. Santa suit in the snow. And eventually Dad just bought me the poster. He's just like, here's the poster. Put it up in your room and stop taking Mom's CD.
What were the other posters on your wall in the 90s? Do you remember the other posters?
Oh, for sure.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I had the Mariah Carey Christmas album poster. I had Pamela Anderson in the Baywatch bathing suit poster.
That had to be on like 70% of kids in the 90s walls.
But like I had nerd stuff too. Like I had when Batman Forever came out, I had each of the character posters up on the wall at some point.
Any band stuff like rock and roll posters?
Yeah, and I had a lot of weird stuff that was just like popular at the time. Like not weird stuff, but like I had Nirvana up on the wall for a while. I had the Prodigy up on the wall for a while.
Prodigy got a spot on the wall.
Yeah, that was one of the first CDs. That was one of the first CDs I figured out. If I could just put this price tag sticker over the parental CD, I'm in business here. I'm up at the counter. My palms are sweating. I'm like, they're gonna know. They're gonna fucking arrest me for trying to do this.
The Prodigy opened up for Oasis at Nebworth. Little underrated fact for you there.
Oasis. I remember buying What's the Story Morning Glory when it came out, and it was just like, this is incredible.
Hearing Wonderwall for the first time. Wow. Don't Look Back in Anger. Champagne Supernova for the first time. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And like watching them do that on the VMAs, like that was another big part of the 90s. Like award shows, like specifically music award shows, MTV, the Grammys, American Music Awards, they were just full of bands, rock bands, most just playing, Pearl Jam, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Green Day, Oasis, Smashing Pumpkins, Metallica, Bush. I could go on forever. It was just full of real music being played live, and then one or two or maybe three pop stars or like diva singers, but.
That was like, it's like flipped now. It's like we'll get the token pop star on the show, and now it's like we'll get the token rock band on the show. They barely even do nowadays. They barely even get one rock act.
And same thing with Saturday Night Live. There was always great bands on Saturday Night Live, and Saturday Night Live itself in the 90s was just, I mean, it was relentless in terms of, Adam Sandler and Chris Farley and David Spade.
Why people still watch it because the reputation it had in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good time, Clem. I'm getting a little choked up.
It was the best, Mike. It was the fucking best. And you just said it with MTV, like even like spring break, you just watch your bands and girls in bikinis running around, and then TRL was, must watch.
Rob didn't really talk about it. Like so much of the 90s were spent just watching MTV music videos all day long, just hoping to see that one video you were really hoping to see, just glued to it. And, like Clem said, then they would do spring break and you knew they would have the stage set up on the beach, singled out. They started doing shows.
I've watched the Blink-182 Spring Break show 100 times. It's such a
Real
good one.
world,
And that's like part of the reason I got
rules.
my bass because Mark Hoppus has that seafoam green bass on the Spring Break show.
Even the challenge, that was the birth of the challenge. It was Real World and Road Rules would just they mash them together. Then you got the challenge out of that, which I obviously loved. And then for me, it was
Beavis and Butthead.
And if there was a video you wanted to see, you'd run to the VCR, hit record, so you'd have it for your, for the future. Same with the radio, hit record if there was a song that just came out and you weren't able to get it on single. And my childhood was 37 was MTV, 39 was ESPN, and it would be Sports Center to MTV, Sports Center, maybe Price is Right if I was home from school, watch that for an hour, and that was it. And then kind of like the internet now, I don't even watch TV. I just am on my phone, I'm on social media, whatever I want, I'll follow or I'll find online. It really was like, I don't know, man. I definitely, I've always felt it's great. And I saw there was a theory that like the world clearly changed on 9/11, and like then you have the wars in Iraq, and it's like we kind of did have it like so perfect there, and then kind of that little nirvana just ended, and then the world kind of went to this really shitty direction. So it's like we really did have
stayed there.
Yeah. It just stayed there, man. You grew up in this shit, and I just hope my kids have just grown up with the pandemic and all these weird things the last couple of years, and I'm like, I really hope we can kind of turn it around for them, because I don't know, man. I really think
the new 90s. Make the 2030s the new 90s.
There we go, Bob. I fucking love it.
I'm getting my kid a pair of Gencos. That's it.
Uncle Bob said it was okay.
Uncle Clem said you're wearing these to school on the first day.
I love that Mike brought it up too. The horny posters. I can still hear Spencer's, the clack of as you're going through the posters.
Going through the poster rack, yeah.
I would have some good shit. I had like Little Penny. It was a lot of sports posters, Knicks, Mets, Giants, if they were anywhere near good. Sometimes I'd have like a fold out from a good comic book or like a video game I got slapped out on the wall.
That was the other thing in the 90s.
Magazines. WWE magazine came with them.
Oh,
Craft magazine, Mad magazine, Sports Illustrated for kids. I got a lot of posters out of that, like WWF and Sports Illustrated for kids always had centerfold posters to pull out, and got tons of those.
WWE magazine, I used to have like a subscription to growing up, and they used to have such cool posters, like cool photo shoots, Rey Mysterio jumping up with all different masks on, The Undertaker, all smoke in a graveyard and stuff. I feel like all my walls were WWE.
My posters sucked because I grew up in the Bret Hart era. Like the coolest poster they had was Bret in a jean jacket, like reflecting in the mountains.
That's the thing, Mike. You came up during that era, and it got again, I was a little older, but once there was Doink, and Doink got like a little dark, which made him a little cooler, but it got a little cartoony.
Doink with the slowed down entrance theme. Yeah.
Yeah, it got really dark, really quick. Yeah. But I remember the Gobbledygooker. That was when I was like, all right, I think it's time to, grow up from this wrestling thing for a little bit. But Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, I missed a lot of good shit. Yokozuna was kind of rising up when I
missed some good pure matches over the character stuff.
And Clem, none of my friends, nobody I know basically watched WWF when I was watching it. But then, you said, Stone Cold took off and it became cultural. It became something everybody had to watch and talk about at school on Tuesday morning. And I remember feeling like, you guys didn't put in the time. I put in the time.
Yeah.
I've been there since WrestleMania 6, watching it all. You guys think it's cool now. I've been in there the whole time.
I've been in this game. Yep,
we had two 90s hipsters then between the two of you.
My daughter during the pandemic, I was watching, I was just kind of just trying to get something on that was, so I got the free, I think they gave away free WWE Network, right, Rob?
Yep.
So then I turned it on and she just caught it in the corner of her eye and she's like, what is this? And she was just entertaining, people going crazy. Stone Cold was probably saying stuff he shouldn't be saying in front of, at that point, a 5-year-old. But she's just it's just one of those things that it just hit with everybody. And it had stuff for the wrestling fans. It had stuff for the Rock was on an electric level. We didn't even realize what he was, the star. Had the sex for the boys like us, right? That had the hormones running through your bodies with Sable and everything. That was a Stacy Keibler poster. That was one of mine. Jenny McCarthy was up in lingerie. That was a very awkward time when my parents are like, oh, He's getting old. That's when I've learned this at a young age. When the son has the door locked, I'm gonna not even knock. Just he'll come out whenever he's ready. That's what I've learned from growing up in the 90s.
All right, I think we covered it all. We did about 90 minutes here, and my computer, I realized I didn't plug my computer in before this, where I'm down to 5%. So let's wrap this up before the entire episode is lost forever, because that would be a true tragedy going down here.
This episode would become a 90s myth.
We would have to put the episode on a floppy disk, Make sure you like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple. It really does help and all that. So make sure you subscribe. I hope if you were a 90s kid, you enjoyed this episode and got some nostalgia for it. And if you weren't a 90s kid, I hope you learned a thing or two about what it was like to grow up a nerd in the 90s today. So thank you to Clem. Thank you to Mike. And we will see you next week for another Grab Bag episode, because we got no shows right now. So I don't know what next week is going to be, but it's going to be another surprise episode. So make sure you tune in for it.